So the presentation I will be giving today will be specifically focusing on our experience of using the NextGEOSS Data Hub throughout our pilot. So we're going to look specifically in how we used it to search for food security data that we could use. But before we delve into our the Data Hub and how we used it, I would first want to start really at the beginning, because you start at defining what are the user needs, because you use that to determine the data that you need, and then you start working with the NextGEOSS Data Hub and components to implement all your algorithms. But first, we started with defining the user needs. So we're working with different communities, organizations, for example, GeoGlam, also internal researchers, external users, to determine what is required for our users. So, and one of the things that we're working on is our crop calendars. So what we try to do is to make a sort of timeline of phenomena that are happening on the field during a growing season. So, for example, based on the crop, when are they planted, when are certain crops being harvested, and other phenomena happening during one single growing season. In order to do this, we need three very important components. First of all, we need scalable on-demand processing, because we want to have information about what is happening on the field. We need to, on a large scale, generate this information. In our case, we used a couple of vegetation indices, in our case 4 different vegetation indices, which tells us something about what is happening on a field, how a crop is doing, how healthy it is. And we generate this based on satellite imagery. We transform it into these vegetation indices. So we need this on a scalable platform, because you want to apply this on any area of interest that you want. And it needs to also be on demand. So meaning, if you want to process this, generate these vegetation indices in another part of the world, you shouldn't be redoing your complete implementation. It should be almost one click of the button and generate me all vegetation indices for this area of interest. So then we have the large data products that contain information about what is happening on a field. Then we have the second point, where we ingest this information into time series analytics to get a time series profile of what is happening during a growing season on field level. So this helps us with extracting the information, the different phenomena that are happening, and interpolating them into those different crop calendars. And the third one, which is also linked to this, to the second one, are the temporal dense profiles, because if we want to extract that information from our vegetation indices, we need to make sure that we have enough information in our time series to extract these phenomena. So we need to be coping, for example, with clouds above a specific field or an area of interest. Those do not result in any useful information, so we need to cope with this challenge as well. So these are the 3 topics upon which we also worked within the NextGEOSS project. But for this slide, I will be focusing on the first part, so the generation of these vegetation indices, because this required the most interaction with the NextGEOSS Data Hub. So we defined our user goals, our user needs, so we know what we wanted to do. And then the first step is, of course, identifying which data we will be using. In our case, we opted to go for the Copernicus Sentinel-2 mission. There are a couple of reasons for this. It's an important asset for crop monitoring. The information and the bands, the data that is in the Sentinel-2 mission, provides us with enough information to extract these vegetation indices from it. Furthermore, because of its resolution, we can provide this crop-based information really on field level, which makes it very interesting for different kinds of end users, for farmers, for industries, or even for policymakers over a complete region or a country as well. And of course, the information that is available within the Sentinel-2 data sets or tiles allows us to even extend our workflow even more. So there are many possible applications that we can do with the information that is included in the Sentinel-2 tiles. So, okay, we have defined that we wanted to use a Sentinel-2 Copernicus mission. And then, of course, we need to define what is the scope of or the area of interest to which we want to apply our process. In our case, we wanted to do this for Belgium, but prove also that it's scalable, that we can apply this in another country as well. So we opted to go for Mali as well. So that means that in order to complete our vegetation indices, we need Sentinel-2 images of Belgium and of Mali as well. So two completely different countries in different continents as well. We need the Sentinel-2 data in order to generate these vegetation indices. So we have defined then everything so we can get started. But then, of course, you come to the conclusion or the challenges. You face certain challenges like, okay, we are interested in Sentinel-2 providers, but there are many kinds of Sentinel-2 providers, which Anestis also showed in his previous presentation as well. Which one do I choose? Each of them maybe has a different access mechanism or authentication mechanism, and you have to cope with this. Do they have the information that I want over the time scale that I wanted? And also, if they have the data, how can I use this data there and download the data in an efficient way to make sure that I can use this and process within my workflow that I'm running to generate these vegetation indices. So these are two of the main challenges that we faced when we try to expand the vegetation indices process to, for example, another country as Mali as well. And this is where the NextGEOSS Data Hub comes in and helps us with this. So first of all, like the previous presentations already showed you, you can use the NextGEOSS catalog search, which allows a very user-friendly and intuitive way to search for the data sets that are available on the NextGEOSS Data Hub. And the results are cross-providers. So if you are certain, in our case, we wanted to use Sentinel-2 data, we use the NextGEOSS catalog search to look for the data sets that are available in the NextGEOSS catalog, both for Belgium and for Mali, and we found a lot of results there. So, but that's when you're working with data, or you know which sensor or which satellite you will be using for your workflow. Another way that is very interesting to search for the data sets is through the thematic areas as well. So if you're already working within food security context and you want to discover, okay, which are data sets that could be relevant to me, you can use these thematic areas to get an overview of the different pilots that are involved in this thematic area, the external services that could be interesting for you, but also the data collections. So like you see here, you already have the Sentinel-2 providers listed here. And you can click one of these providers or data collections, and it will automatically fill in the different query parameters in the catalog search for you. So this already helps us with searching the data that we want. So we can use a catalog to search for all Sentinel-2 tiles above the areas of interest that we want to process. Then, of course, the next step is, how do I get these into my processing workflow? How can I use these results that I see in the catalog search and process them into vegetation indices? So that's what Jovanka also showed, is that with one click of the button, you can export the results, the query that you do on the NextGEOSS catalog, to an OpenSearch URL. And when you enter this URL in the browser, you get exactly the same results as from your query that you did within the web application in the UI. But the main advantage is that you can use this OpenSearch query directly in your processing workflow that is running on the NextGEOSS cloud platform. So you can just give this OpenSearch URL as an input to your processing workflow, and it will automatically start processing all the results that it returns. So it's very easy to transfer the products that you are looking for on the NextGEOSS catalog that you found there into your processing workflow, which is running, in this case, on the NextGEOSS platform as well. So this is, in short, an overview of how we use the NextGEOSS Data Hub within our pilot to find data related to food security using the NextGEOSS Data Hub. But we also used the NextGEOSS Data Hub later on in the process, where we again publish the results of our pilots back into the NextGEOSS Data Hub, so increasing the visibility of what we did, and made sure that the vegetation indices that we have generated are published back to the NextGEOSS Data Hub as well. So, for example, you can find in the NextGEOSS Data Hub, you can find information about our community portal, but you can also find the vegetation indices that we've generated within the project. So this, again, the Data Hub allows us also not only to find the information that we want to generate the vegetation indices, but also to publish our results, making sure that what we have generated can be used again by another community or other users to start developing their own workflow. And this also concludes my short presentation about how we, as the pilot, as a food security pilot, have used the NextGEOSS data, both for fetching the input as well as publishing our results as well.